The crime of amputing the human eye of its lens, aphakia, and not replacing it with an artificial lens was the standard cure for cataract 25 years from now, the world over. The crime left the patient with her thick, aphakic Coke bottle glasses, roving as a jack-in-the-box. With this crutch, the whole world appeared distorted and magnified. So patients were made to wait with cataracts until they were blind, with the excuse the cataract must be mature, so that they could tolerate this distorted vision after operation. Until one man, Harold Ridley, ran up the clock and braved the odds to implant the first intraocular lens on 29th November 1949. Nicholas Harold Lloyd Ridley was born on the 10th of July 1906 in Leicester. He had a younger brother, Alder. Child Ridley grew up in the small town of Oadby. He was shy and quiet. He had a stammer. His younger brother was more achieving, as his son Nicholas recollects.
He had a stammer, which he largely managed to cure, and I suspect the reason for the stammer was that he had this incredibly academic younger brother, Alder Ridley, who passed every exam that he ever took with absolute flying colours.
His mother, Margaret Parker, was from the Yeoman Parker family, a great friend of Florence Nightingale, who, as a lap child, Ridley was very fond of. They completed their school from the famous Charterhouse School, Surrey. Ridley's father, Charles Ridley, a brilliant student, aspired to be a general surgeon, but unfortunately he developed a crippling hemophilic arthritis at a very young age. He was compelled to shift to eye practice, which was physically less demanding. He used to operate with crutches, even in considerable pain.
My grandfather said to him when he was probably about 18 or 19, what profession do you want to follow? And my uncle chose law. He decided to be a barrister.
So Ridley had to become an eye specialist. An eye specialist to fulfill his father's unfinished dream. He graduated from Pembroke College, Cambridge. He got his tripos in natural sciences in 1927. He finished his basic medical education, MD, from Cambridge, with training from St. Thomas's. He accompanied his father as his guest to attend the Oxford Congress in 1930. On the way, he asked his father, and also Mr. Hudson, about a skilled worker who had cataract in one eye.
He's given me cataract in one eye, and the other eye was quite normal. He was a skilled workman, and his career was completely ruined because he lost binocular vision. He only had one eye. Couldn't use two eyes together. So I said how nice it would be to put a new lens in. My father said it's impossible, it's dangerous. The eyes are a very delicate organ. And my great teacher, Mr. Hudson, was always against inserting foreign bodies. He said we take foreign bodies out of eyes, we don't put them in.
In July 1932, Ridley became FRCS at the youngest eligible age of 25. After his FRCS, for a year and a half, Ridley travelled as a ship doctor. It infused in him the sight and the strength to seek the unknown. Due to his stammer, his communication suffered. He developed his skills in surgery. Under Mr. Hudson, surgery became his tool of communication with his patients.
God made him to be an eye surgeon. He had tiny little hands, very, very dexterous, very, very quick at surgery.
Ridley joined an 18-month residency in Moorfields. Ridley, with his surgical skills, soon became the blue-eyed boy of Moorfields. As resident in Moorfields, 3 surgeons made him run their practices in Harley. This brought jealousy amongst his contemporaries, but his seniors supported him. With the support of the staff in 1938, Ridley became a full-time consultant of Moorfields at the very early age of 32.
He was the only consultant of that time who would bother to sit down, take you aside, describe to you the steps that were necessary to make a career in the specialty.
Organization, however, was the high point of excellence of the articulated scholar, statesman, and senior contemporary of Ridley, Sir Stuart Duke Elder, the most eminent physician of that time. During the War of Britain, Flight Lieutenant Cleaver rushed to his aircraft. His aircraft would not start. He changed to another aircraft. In the hurry, he forgot his goggles. His aircraft was badly fired at. He bailed out, but the splinters from the canopy badly injured his eyes. Peter Arnott, his resident, remembers,
he was sent from Salisbury Infirmary to Moorfields Eye Hospital. He was actually referred to Sir Stuart Duke Elder in Moorfields. And of course, as we all know, Sir Stuart was the most wonderful administrator, right, etc., but he didn't operate very much. And so the care of this patient, like so many of the other fighter pilots, went to Harold Ridley.
What was a destructive piece of plastic for anybody else was a precious creative observation for Ridley. Ridley found that the plastic did not cause any reaction in Flight Lieutenant Cleaver's eye. He called other fighter pilots and observed them. The plastic is light and transparent, so why can't we make an IOL of this? World War II broke out, but a bigger war had erupted in the British ophthalmic world. The war between the physician Duke Elder and the surgeon Harold Ridley.
My father and Duke Elder disagreed. Clearly, Duke Elder didn't regard him favourably. So in 1939 and 1940, when the Second World War commenced, naturally my father was expected, and the best place he could have been was actually dealing with the Battle of Britain pilots.
Ridley was posted to Ghana, where his surgical experience would be of little value. Ridley accused Duke Elder, then a ranking officer in the British Army, of being responsible for this posting. But this would not deter Ridley. He fought another battle with river blindness. He went on in difficult terrains of Accra, Funsi, and Takoradi to publish the first monographs of onchocerciasis, the Ridley fundus. War took Ridley to Pune and then to Parganas in Barakpur, Calcutta. He went to Burma and worked to cure nutritional blindness in the Chinese prisoners of war. Ridley, over the years, had developed an affection, a belonging, and an understanding of the third world. Ridley married Elizabeth Witherill. They were blessed with 3 children, Margaret, Nicholas, and David. In 1946, Ridley established his private office at 53 Harley Street.
When he was in West Africa, he bought 53 Harley Street, almost exclusively. The whole of the ground floor of 53 Harley Street was devoted to his work. Worked late hours and much of the weekends as well.
He worked with Marconi Wireless and Pi Electronics to televise the eye operations for the first time in black and white and then in color. Together with John Pike of Rayner, he developed electronic ophthalmoscopy. Steve Perry, a medical student watching his first cataract operation, remarked to Ridley, "It's a pity that you cannot replace the cataractous lens with an artificial one."
I knew that I had something to offer. Mankind had been waiting since 1745, 200 years, for someone to have the courage to face it. And I was the man. I was given the genes to do it.
Dr. John Holt of ICI further purified the Perspex. For clinical quality, Perspex CQ. Len Roth, the optical engineer of Rayner's, made the IOLs. Ridley, Pike and Holt abandoned any financial interest to keep the project purely scientific. So did ICI, and above all, Rayner's. This sacrifice is virtually unthinkable in today's world of patents.
Again, it was his suggestion. He was very firm that he did not want any financial exchanges.
The first IOL was ready to be implanted. Rayner charged the cost price of £1 only for an IOL. The project was delayed by 1 year. This was to find the most suitable candidate. It had to be a unilateral traumatic cataract. She had to agree to the unknown risks of a new operation. The left eye of a 45-year-old lady was chosen as the first case. St. Thomas's Hospital, London. 29th November 1949. In the secrecy of closed doors, Ridley performed the first IOL operation. A new era was being implanted in ophthalmic history. The result was far from satisfactory. The patient became highly myopic. The IOL fixation was unstable. why did this happen? Pike and Ridley were quick to act. They made the necessary corrections. The first IOL was explanted and the new one implanted on 5th February 1950. This was also the first IOL explantation and re-implantation. Her eye was quiet. She had 6/18 vision. The second set of computations worked very well. Ridley performed 8 operations until 1951. One case even had 6/6 vision unaided. The Oxford Ophthalmological Congress, 1951. A very important presentation had to be made. But the response was very hostile. Sir Duke Elder and others refused to see the patients, even on repeated requests. The deputy master foreclosed the session. Ridley was very upset.
And my father said to me that he thought, and he wasn't sure, that Duke Elder expected him to go and what he was doing, but which of course he didn't do. His argument was, well, you know, you're an ophthalmic physician, you don't operate. What would I want to come to talk to you about? I mean,
dismissed at home, Ridley went to the United States to carry forward his innovation. He gave his first lecture in the annual meeting of the Chicago Ophthalmological Society. The response was very positive. Warren Rees flew his private plane the very next morning and implanted his first IOL in America at Wills Eye Hospital, Philadelphia. The invitation of the American Academy followed in October 1952. Derek Vale and Stuart Duke Elder were close friends. So, when Derek Vale, president of the Academy, invited Ridley to come and present his lens implant, it was nothing short of sabotage. Vale devastated Ridley by saying what he was doing was malpractice.
What hurt him most was not that his presentation had been criticised, but many of his senior colleagues wouldn't even look at the patients he had brought along. That hurt considerably. And again, when he was invited to the United States, it was the way in which they criticised him that hurt him more than the actual criticism itself.
Peter Choyce recollects, on several occasions, Duke Elder questioned me about Ridley's IOL patients. When it became clear that I was also convinced that Ridley was on the right track, Duke Elder said that in that case, I could no longer count on his support to obtain a consultant's post at Moorfields. War relives itself in creation. Destruction preludes creativity. The war between Ridley and Sir Duke Elder is the most beautiful conflict in ophthalmology. To get one better than the other, Ridley gifted the ophthalmic world with the IOL, while Sir Duke Elder gave us his 15 volumes of System of Ophthalmology, the Encyclopedia and Bible of ophthalmic academics and research. About World War II, Churchill once said, "So much has been owed to so many by so few," but its ophthalmic translation is very different. So little had been owed by so few for so much. Ridley implanted about 1,000 intraocular lenses. 80% of his operations had 6/9 or better vision. It was more of an art been a science at that time.
Those who had a high level of skill found that they could actually perform the surgery without too much trouble. Others who had a less degrees of skill found it very, very difficult to do, and that increased the problem.
Ridley ridiculed. Why don't you go home? Would you have IOLs in your son's eye? Till I am in charge, no implant will ever be done. Rayner should be prosecuted.
The stress that he was put under in the 50s did tell towards the end. That by getting on for 1960, he came close to having a breakdown.
Ridley became a psychological patient. Under constant threats of litigation and prosecution, he knew he had no support amongst his peers in Britain. Thanks are due to the doggedness of Ridley's protege, Peter Choyce, who carried forward the movement at this crucial stage. He founded the first international intraocular implant club on July 14, 1966, at a meeting in the Science Museum at London. Trampelli designed the first AC IOL. Peter Choyce made 9 modifications of AC IOLs in 13 years. Cornelius Binkhorst gave his model of the iris clip IOLs. Edward Epstein came up with his collar stud design. Feideroff created the Sputnik lenses. John Worst had his iris claw design, and there were many more. ICO in Paris. IOL was not included in the conference. Peter Choyce organized a separate satellite meeting. The message was loud and clear. IOL was here to stay. Suddenly, the demands for IOLs increased drastically.
And one surgeon wanted to order enough lenses that was equivalent to our year's manufacturing capability. And he wanted that every 3 months.
Then came the dark era. Some quick-rich Americans started marketing quickly manufactured, bad-quality IOLs. One size fits all, one lens for all seasons. And the UGG syndrome became an epidemic. Corneal decompensation became rampant. Even Joachim Barker had to remove 50% of the 500 lenses he had implanted. The president, ASCRS, had to telegram to all the members to withhold implantation and closely follow up patients using certain lens designs and manufacturers. Dr. K.K. Mehta recalls,
In 1976, when I was in London attending Moorfields, when those were the days when people were removing more lenses than putting them in. Strampelli lenses were being removed, and people were reviling Ridley as a man who probably has started something which will make life miserable for everyone. And Ridley turned on and said a comment at that time. Today they are cursing me, tomorrow they will turn on and say, why didn't it come earlier?
there were many surgeons who made a career by humiliating IOLs and Ridley at that time.
I can remember in the mid-1980s that a surgeon standing up at one congress and saying there are two types of intraocular lens surgeon, those who put the lenses in and those who take them out. I'm very proud to belong to the latter.
Nobody realized that these lenses had violated the fundamentals of Ridley's postulations.
And he said very early on, if the material is biocompatible, if it doesn't move, and if it is smooth and doesn't cause trauma, then it'll be tolerated. And I think that's a very good principle.
As wisdom would have it, nobody realized that Ridley had actually run up the clock. It was not the IOL, but the technique of surgery which needed change. With today's extracapsular technique, Ridley's IOL would have given excellent results.
Iris clip lenses, AC lenses had their problems. Extracapsular surgery was the one thing that made people feel this is the operation for implants.
Almost simultaneously in 1979, John Pierce in the United Kingdom and Peter Shering in the United States came back with a posterior chamber lens design, the IOL of today. The Ridley lens was back. It only had two haptics for fixation, which made the optic smaller and the IOL lighter. This modification had taken 30 years of fearful experimentation. The clouds started clearing, and the rays of hope kept on trickling from all quarters. Even Ridley had no idea of what he had started. The IOL money has spurred ophthalmology from a mere peripheral medical discipline into one of the biggest happening surgical specialities in the marketplace.
He was a great man, great courage, great persistence, and great insight.
It's impossible to even imagine what we would be without Mr. Ridley. My entire life has been devoted to 4 millimeters of tissue, and I couldn't have picked a better profession. I enjoy my patients. My patients enjoy unparalleled, unprecedented sight. It's all because of Mr. Ridley.
Far from this market complex, jingle-mingle, hardcore, synthetic competition, Ridley retired to the simplicity of his Salisbury keeper's cottage, his favourite fly fishing, his fond and bitter memories.
I'm very pleased with myself when I caught 19 fish one day. I had great difficulty in understanding my father. He and my mother spent a lot of time in our school holidays abroad, and so we were sent off with relatives. It'd be wrong to say that we didn't have a happy time. He needed the support of my mother. And so I suppose the answer to your question is that my mother was really dragged from both sides. Very difficult for her. I don't think my father believed that, and nor do I believe that life is all about making money. Life is about doing something you enjoy doing, something which is worthwhile. And I'm very proud of what my father did.
Ridley was always a third world man. He was very proud of his work on river blindness, as much as he was with his IOL invention.
Even at that stage there was discussion going on in the company about what we should do with our reject lenses. Many of the surgeons who see them said they were perfectly usable lenses. They should be perfectly all right to supply to the third world. I remember that remark coming up in Ridley's presence. And Ridley said, no, there's no such thing as the third world eye. All right.
A new multifocal IOL design today costs Rs 40,000 in the marketplace, whereas the first Rayner Ridley lens cost only about £1. Had the IOL been invented today, can we imagine its cost? Could 40 lakh Indians afford it every year? If that was not the case, where would the third world ophthalmology and ophthalmologists be today? Here lies Ridley's importance. The importance of the unfinancial reward of practicing medicine.
If we had not started using lens implants at the time that we did, whether anybody would have been brave enough to try it out with all the worries about new devices and drugs and everything, I dare say they would have done, but it would have been far more fraught than it was in those days, when you could do something on your own responsibility just because you felt it was justified. And I don't know about ethics committees and committees on safety of medicines and so on, but it was so much easier than it would have been now.
God blessed him with good health and a long life. Ridley was almost forgotten in his lifetime, till David Apple, a young ocular pathologist working with IOLs, reinvented him. He published his work worldwide in journals, columns, and editorials. His first honours came at the age of 80 in 1986. He was given the Fellow of Royal Society, FRS.
And he'd become rather more relaxed in life too, after he became a Fellow of the Royal Society. I think he felt that he'd at last been accepted for what he'd done.
The Doctor of Human Letters, 1989. The Gulfstrand Medal in 1992. The Gonin Medal in 1994. He was a special invitee at the American Academy, 1990, Atlanta.
He changed the whole world of ophthalmology to an extent that we would not have been here at this point of time in this level of ophthalmology, world globally speaking, without his contribution. We would have been 100 years behind.
Ridley was one of the few inventors who benefited from his own invention. He chose to get operated in St. Thomas's, the hospital where he had invented the IOL. Mr. M.G. Falcon, the surgeon, said,
and had chosen to have his surgery done here, and so it befell for me to carry out his surgery, and I felt perhaps that I was the wrong person in the right place at the right time. His first operation was done, well, as indeed they both were, under general anaesthetic, and thankfully everything went very smoothly. He asked for a general anaesthetic largely because he said, well, my boy, if I'm awake I'll be telling you what to do all the time, which I think was... He was very fair. He was sometimes very outspoken and very witty. Long after he retired from St. Thomas's, what he was up to, and he sort of said, well, I'm still very busy, but then what can I do? Patients expect the best. And you never quite knew whether he meant it or not, or whether he was joking, but probably a bit of both.
Ridley had this wonderful sense of humour. To his residents, he would advise, don't set your practice by the seaside. It will restrict your practice by 180 degrees. Patients cannot come from the sea, can they?
I know he hated politicians too, because when we were organising the anniversary in 1999, we just heard that politicians were going to be present, and he wasn't going to come. He said, oh, I'm not going to come. I don't like politicians.
A banquet is being held in London tonight in honour of a British eye surgeon who 50 years ago today performed the first operation to treat cataracts. Harold Ridley, who's now 93, is credited with pioneering the technique which so far has saved the sight of at least 200 million people around the world.
50 years on, Harold Ridley may not be a household name, but tonight, at the age of 93, his contribution to 20th century medicine is finally being recognised. Harold Ridley, who had pioneered the technique, persevered.
So I have a child, Jonathan, who is a Down syndrome, and at the age of 18, he's now 22 years of age, developed cataracts in both eyes and also a keratoconus in one eye. And that child has had both implants done, and only for the technology that Harold Ridley has developed, my kid would be blind. So that is to me a very personal thing. And not only that, but he's excelled at gymnastics. He's won a gold and bronze medal at the Special Olympics in Connecticut 3 years ago. So I have a special interest in all of this, not only from my patient's point of view, but from my family point of view. And I would like to pay tribute to Harold Ridley for the magnificent contribution that he has made to all of human mankind.
The duty of an after-dinner speaker is to stand up, speak up, and shut up. But I don't think it's quite as simple as that. Because here we are, practically at the end of the 20th century, in the presence of somebody who has changed the face of medicine forever. Binkhorst from Holland, alas, he's no longer with us. Ted Epstein from South Africa is with us today, aged 89. Where are you, Ted? Please stand up. We have Slavy Fyodorov from Russia. Please stand up. We have Sandy Brown from Bristol. Please stand up. We have Michael Roper Hall from Birmingham. Please stand up, Michael. They all look so goddamn young, don't they? Today, almost all eye surgeons, wherever they are in practice, perform pseudo-phakic surgery without losing any sleep. We both, he and I, had a very tough time of it for many years. Nobody enjoys fighting the establishment. But we are lucky to have lived long enough to know that our sufferings were not in vain. To Harold and Elizabeth Ridley.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding. The toast is Harold Ridley and Elizabeth.
For once the British inventor was enjoying a British invention made out of British war experience with a British manufacturer on British soil. As memories dwindle down to that lonely dinner after the Oxford Congress, this razzmatazz seemed truly inconceivable, where words drowned out, and the only sound which carried sense.
Ladies and gentlemen, our friends, how can I thank you for the wonderful send-off you've given me and my wife?
Ridley was in the Queen's Millennium Honours List, knighted 50 years after his invention. Perhaps rightly so, as he was the biggest living British inventor of the millennium. Today, on his birth centenary, we find the OPD in St. Thomas's named after him, the Ridley Clinic. Patients, even those who have been implanted, have no idea that Sir Harold Ridley invented the IOL at this very hospital. Pembroke College, Cambridge. There is a walk named after him, the Ridley Walk. I asked some students whether they knew about Sir Harold Ridley.
No, sorry. Not that particularly. But ask one of them, they probably know.
Sorry, sir. This is how we remember you on your birth centenary. Sir Harold Ridley left us on the 25th of May 2001. His protege, Peter Choyce, followed suit 3 months later. Ridley's wife, Elizabeth, lives in a nursing home. She underwent IOL surgery 2 years back. She hardly realizes that this is the same operation for which she and her husband had fought the world.
I'm going to have on my tombstone, he cured aphakia. And people will go and say, who was aphakia?
Sir, there is no grave, there is no tombstone on which is written, here lies the man who cured aphakia. A place where we could go and pay our respects to the man who has changed our lives, to a man who simply lived his heart for his patients. Yet, there is a place for you in every eye that benefits by your invention. Every eye that sees the new rays of light will always be eternally thankful to you. A very happy birthday, sir.